Hey, everyone. Good day to you all. This is Friday, March the 28th, 2025. It's Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris, and we have a Thursday to review. And I don't really feel like waiting around, so let's just do it. We're going to get straight into the ultra short review, and the way we've been doing it on this show lately, at least certainly during silly season, is by going to a list that I make as the games are finishing up of the players that I think are worth discussing on the show. And that's how we do it. So let's begin with the ads, many of whom have already appeared on this show 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and talk our way through them. The first name on the list is Scotty Pippen Jr. And as long as Ja Morant is out, Pippen belongs on this ads board. He once again had a great ball game. I know they got their butts kicked, but at least Pippen was pretty good. He had 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 steals, and 3 threes. 7 turnovers was problematic, but honestly, with the other line he put up, I sort of don't care. Earlier in the year, at the beginning of the season, I guess we go back all the way, it was Pippen filling in for Ja. Remember, at the very start of the season. And then Memphis went through this long stretch where it was a lot of Luke Kennard actually filling in for Ja Morant. And now it seems like it's kind of flipped back over to Scotty Pippen Jr. again. I can't possibly figure out why it's one and not the other. And there are some days where it's both. Maybe this is one where just the matchup wasn't great. Kennard only had 1 assist. Not great there. But as long as it's Pippen, which it seemingly is right now, he's put together a number of solid games in a row. And honestly, I don't think I win my head-to-head league without him. He's a guy that needs to be rostered, and we've said it for a number of days straight. So I think we can jump by that one. Here's one that I think is going to require some explanation. And when I posted this on Twitter, one of the responses was, Dan, please explain why you're bullish on Rui Hachimura. Which is also, it does bring into focus the fact that I put him on the ads board on a night when he didn't play. That does seem like a flat-out idiotic thing that I did. But as I talked about on yesterday's show, after he had a pretty good game in the Lakers win over Indiana, when the usage is there, he is, right now, a 3-level scorer who's going to be open all the time. I will admit, I am slightly concerned about the missed back-to-backs. That's not great. Lakers' schedule has been extremely heavy in back-to-backs lately, and they have a little bit of sort of like a catch-your-breath kind of moment happening right now where they play only 2 games over the next 6 days, but then they go into a 5-7, basically to finish the year. So there are going to be a couple of days off for Rui blended in there. It's going to turn a pair of 4-game weeks into 3-game weeks if you're dealing with the head-to-head side. I'm assuming that the vast majority of you are playing Roto right now that are watching this show, because a lot of head-to-head leagues, and many of them should be done. Head-to-head, I get it. Rui turning a 4-game week into a 3-game week, you're going to find somebody out there who has a 4-game week that's better. But when he's on the court, I believe pretty strongly that he's going to put up pretty good lines. And the evidence for that is going back to the games before Hachimura went down. And some of those, admittedly, they were kind of working Luka into the offense, and Luka's going to do more now than he did 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, I guess, is when Rui got hurt. But he was taking 12, 13, 14 shots per game. By the way, there are also going to be days that the other Lakers get a day off. It's not just going to be Rui the rest of the way, but I don't want to rely on that. Let's pretend that's not going to happen for a minute. Let's just look at the Hachimura situation by itself. He only played 18 minutes in that win over Minnesota. That was the game where he got hurt, and then he was just sort of done for a while. Prior to that, he was playing arguably the most minutes of anybody on the team. 36, 38, 35, 39. Just racking up big-time minutes. And scoring well. He had that bad game against Portland, but he had 12 rebounds in it at least. I know he's not going to get a ton of defensive stats, and he doesn't pass almost at all. He's an absolutely terrible passer. But And maybe that also brings into focus this idea of like, what categories are you hunting for? Okay, if you don't need scoring and you don't need threes and you don't need it on decent percentages, okay, fine. But from a straight 9-cat mathematical perspective, when he gets his minutes up to starters level, which they're close, he played 28 in their win over Indiana, and if it keeps slowly trending up into the 30s, he'll get there soon. He is probably, a top 115 or higher kind of fantasy guy. And I know 115 doesn't move the needle. You guys like, damn, that's actually not that great. That's startable in most formats. Most like reasonably competitive 12-team leagues, 115 range is startable. That's technically a 10th rounder. Obviously, it's better if you can have like all 8th rounders or better, but sometimes that isn't the case. And if he happens to run warm or I guess that's sort of the focus there. And if the Lakers run, 5 wings and there's no center, that could potentially help his rebounding as well. I wouldn't, again, put all of our eggs into that basket, but it's not off the table. So the bullishness is not about what he's doing in this moment. It's about what I think he will do shortly, while also admitting the fact that he's going to sit out some back-to-backs. So he makes very little sense for head-to-head leagues that are still going. And the Lakers have a bad schedule coming up for that same general purpose. Friends, March Madness is in full swing. The games were hot. Last night. And I know you guys got down on your Cinderella story, right? Yeah, you did. I don't know if it worked out for you, though. I have to admit, I didn't see the results of March Madness because I watched the NBA. But BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Even if your bracket went bust, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with a free Sweet 16 bracket challenge, $50,000 in prizes on that bad boy, and live betting on every remaining tournament game. BetOnline has the largest selection of odds on everything out there. College basketball, NBA, MLB, NHL, MMA, obviously when football comes rolling back around, and continues to be your number one sports betting source with odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. They've been such an unbelievable partner for us. I really, really would love you guys to check them out. Back on the ads board is our good buddy Kevin Huerter, who jacked up 17 shots in the Bulls and Lakers insane-o ball game yesterday. He was hot, too. He made 5 3-pointers. And that's the thing with Huerter right now. He's starting. He's playing good minutes. We've talked about it before, and like I don't want to spend too much time on Kevin. If he's getting 11.5 shots per game or more, he's a top 100 fantasy guy. And lately, 16, 12, 11, 17, that's above 11. In fact, 3 out of those 4 games are above 11, and 2 of them are quite distant above 11. He can do it because he gets steals. I don't know why I don't have him on more rosters. I've talked about Huerter a lot on this show. He's been solid lately and not getting much in the way of fanfare either. Top 35 over the last 2 weeks. Why the hell isn't anybody talking about him? He's been a really good fantasy player lately, and you should have him, and that's why we've been talking about him a lot on the show. Kyle Filipowski is the next one on our board. He had a good game yesterday, even with Walker Kessler in the lineup, so that's encouraging. 16-7, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and a 3-pointer. You're not going to expect much in the steals and blocks department from him. That was, honestly, the 4 combined. I didn't look it up right now, but I'll look it up while we're talking. I'm betting that the steal block 4 combo is probably a season high for him. Without even looking, I'm going to guess that 4 combined is a season high. Someone could check me on it, but I'd be blown away if he had a 5-pack in there. That set a new high. He's done 3 combined a couple of times, but he had never gotten to 4. So don't expect much in steals and blocks. But Utah's on a back-to-back. Walker Kessler is likely to sit out the ball game tonight, which means that Filipowski gets to slide up to a center spot where he's pretty reliably lately dragged down 8 to 13 rebounds, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So I think you could expect something like 2 assists, 9, 10 boards, something like that tonight. He also is hitting 3-pointers and doing so at a good field goal percent clip. So that's sort of like a double bonus, 52% from the field on the year, almost 40% from downtown. You can expect, I think, more than 1 3-pointer when he gets those full minutes. And there's just a lot to like. Specifically about tonight, I definitely would not have had the stones to play him yesterday in the front end of the back-to-back. And then you've got some weird stuff coming up, like Utah plays at Charlotte on Monday, so maybe you get a Filipowski game there if they decide that they want to rest Kessler against another tanking team. Then Walker probably pops back in for 3 or 4 games, and then who knows what happens in that final week of the regular season. That's a total crapshoot. So again, Filipowski might not be a rest of season guy, but if you can sort of parachute him in for the right day, great. That's perfect. Keon Ellis continued to start for the Kings despite Malik Monk being available. And I think they'll probably ramp Monk back up at some point here. Malik only 17 bench minutes. Everybody played well for Sacramento because Portland is now pretty much thrown in the towel. Not all the way. They're still playing their guys, sort of. But I think they've sort of realized their fate is sealed. And Keon Ellis had 6 steals in this game, so there was no way he was going to get yanked. Does it become a bit more timeshare-ish? I think the answer is no, because if Ellis is starting, there's still minutes around. Like, they can get Monk up into the high 20s, even the low 30s, by just pulling a few from Keon Ellis and a couple from Keegan Murray if they want to run smaller for a little bit. And like, they don't have to give 16 minutes to Markelle Fultz on a given night. There was no Jake LaRavia, by the way, for this ball game, just for whatever that, like, couple of minutes there. That does matter. But you got to make sure you have Ellis. The fact that he's still starting with Monk back makes him like a triple on this board, which luckily, if you go back and watch our other shows where we've done these player reviews, we've had Ellis in the ads chunk every time he's filled in for Malik Monk. Every time. And now, and this is what happened the first time around. Remember when Monk he came in and he took a starting job when DeMar DeRozan went down, and then DeRozan went back, and I think it was Huerter, actually, who we just talked about, got pushed to the bench so they could leave Monk in. That might be happening now on the flip, but you're still holding Malik Monk. I put him in the ads board just to make sure that I could get to the point of, like, you got to hold him. I don't care that he's coming off the bench here. They're going to find enough minutes for him. But if it does drop back down into really like what we saw at the very beginning of the year and most of last season, where Monk was coming off the bench and the minutes weren't guaranteed. You can go back to the game log and look at the very beginning of this year. His minutes were more, 25, 26, 21. Then there was like a 38 when things were going well. And it was in November. It was a month into the season where he jacked that starting job and then held on to it for a while. And that's why he's got on this pretty awesome run. But if it pivots back the other way, he was outside the top 100 when he was only playing 25, 26 bench minutes. He was a great points and assists stream in that role. But from a strict 9-cat ranking standpoint, like if you didn't need those categories specifically, then he didn't do enough. We now scroll down to the very close board, which, as I've explained many times on the show, these are guys that if you want to put them on your fantasy team, I am 100% fine with that. But for me personally, I'm waiting for something or I'm watching for something. So let's go through some of these names. Max Christie is the first name on the board. He started the second half for Dallas after Kai Jones got hurt, so the Mavs ran smaller. Anthony Davis bumped up to the 5. Everybody else slid up a spot so that Christie could basically be like the shooting guard, I guess, in that lineup. I don't know. Is Klay Thompson the shooting guard? It really doesn't matter what you call them. So Christie was interesting. He only took 6 shots in 29 minutes, so the usage was very low, but he was efficient. And is that because he was playing alongside Anthony Davis, where there was just a guy? AD had a terrible game, by the way, but at least there was sort of like some gravity that allowed the other guys to be a little bit more open? Possibly, but I'm not ready to say yes yet. And that's why Christie is still more of a very close guy for me, but not a guy that I'm adding yet. Spencer Dinwiddie has been on our ads board for a while, but I've also been cautioning you guys on almost every show that at some point, things are going to fall apart for him. And I worry, could this be the beginning of that? We should give him a little bit of rope. 7 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals is not the end of the universe, but it was a pretty damn bad ball game. 25 minutes. So is that a sign that they're willing to pivot in another way? Do they say, okay, well, we've got AD back, so maybe we don't need Dinwiddie to be the creator at all times. We'll run our offense through Anthony. I don't know. I think we need another game of evidence before we make any call here. But in the very short term, again, I think you could keep him if you need points and assists in particular. But be aware that when it gets bad, it gets real bad. I've also got Klay Thompson on my very close board, which I know is kind of weird because he hasn't played all that well. But he's another guy like with Christie where I wonder if just having a superstar out there is going to make them more confident, take more shots. And then you're going to see, guys like Najee Marshall do less and Dinwiddie do less. And the guys that were sort of forced into being super high usage guys are now have to be a little bit more fringy because AD is the focal point. So I'm curious. Again, that's why these guys are close but not making the move. Hopefully that makes sense. Keldon Johnson is on the very close board. He's a pretty category-specific guy. He went on a crazy defensive stats run. Was that last week or the week before? But you knew that wasn't going to stick for long. I think it was like the beginning of last week where he had a 3-steal game, then a 2-block, 2-steal game, and then nothing, and then a 3-steal, 2-block game. And over the last 3 games now, he has 2 steals and 1 block. But he's been pretty reliably scoring and getting rebounds, which I think is kind of all you're hunting for if you're on the Keldon Johnson thing. 13 points, about 6 boards over the last week, shooting way over his head at the free throw line, and the steals and blocks are a bit high. So the rank is artificially inflated by stuff that we know is not going to stick. But the minutes have been pretty good lately, other than that weird 19-minute game. He's playing, 26, 27 most days. And that's enough for him to get 15, 16 points, 5, 6 rebounds. And again, if you're hunting those particular categories, that would be enough. But I'm not in a lot of spots. So in any event, a couple of Wizards on the board. Jaxson Hayes is doing stuff again. I have no clue how long it's going to last. None. He has come and gone with the breeze. March 11th, 13th, and 15th, he played 31, 33, and 39 minutes. On the 17th, he played 19 minutes. Then I think he hurt himself. Then he missed a game. Then he came back and played 28 minutes and looked like all was going fine. And then 22, 21, 22, and then 33. And he started the last couple out of nowhere. I don't know what the hell's going on. I think I am of the opinion that if we could find out the days that Jaxson Hayes is starting, you play him. If we had any idea. Sadly, I have no idea. Not even a damn clue. So what do you do? Head-to-head, you can't really do much. I don't think you can pick him up in head-to-head because if he doesn't start and has a terrible game, you wasted a roster move. Roto, I think you could add him and just drop him in when you get the Wizards starting lineup on any given day. And that's probably what I'll do in a few spots where I have guys that I want to drop right now. This is Tristan Vukcevic, is the next name on the board here. And yesterday went exactly as we feared it would, which was on the second half of a back-to-back for the Wizards. And they've done this twice now. Richaun Holmes has been the primary first half backup center to a surging Alex Sarr. And then Vukcevic got some time late in the last one, and he got a little more time late in this one because the Wizards lost by basically 50 points. This is an insane game. Indy put up a buck 62 in regulation. Mad about that Lakers loss, I guess. So Vukcevic is a guy that I think, frankly, in head-to-head, actually in all formats right now, I think he belongs on rosters in all formats. This was the end of a 5 games in 7 days stretch. The Wizards' schedule is pretty good, actually. But I would be wary of starting Vukcevic in that second half of a couple of back-to-backs. They still have 2 of them left. But in the other games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that are front end of a back-to-back or not related to a back-to-back at all, he's been putting up great numbers. Yeah, probably an easier play in Roto because you could just skip 2 games, just leave him on your bench for those 2. But I think, again, he'll sort of he'll snowball enough stats that the bad games won't even really matter on the head-to-head side. So I think Vukcevic does belong on rosters right now, and I'd probably stick with him. Arguably, the most interesting name to come out of yesterday's card was Vit Krejci, who started for the Hawks, played 26 minutes. I'd like that number to be a little bit higher, but had 14, 6, and 4 with a block and 4 3-pointers. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything from a fantasy standpoint, and I think he will benefit from being with the starting unit because he's not a usage guy. So he'll be better if he plays alongside better players. Like sometimes you shift a guy to the bench and they get to go wild, which I think is actually kind of the case for Caris LeVert. He makes a lot of sense as the bench unit guy here because Trae Young can come out, and then LeVert, you can just get silly. But Krejci, he doesn't make any sense in that unit. Caris LeVert doesn't have the gravity of a Trae Young, so Krejci's never open. But now you get him in there with Trae, who might be able to get him open, just somebody who can create and pass, and all of a sudden, he's getting actually more shots in the same number of minutes. And it makes no sense. Like, if you think about, you put him alongside high usage guys, he actually does more. But that's kind of what happens. Certain guys just have to have the right pairing or grouping, I guess, would be a better way to describe it, of players on the court with them. Would I add Krejci on this one game? 5 out of 8 shooting kind of inflates the numbers a little bit, but I like the rebounds. I like the assists. He gets blocks and steals when he's out there long enough. I'm close, man. I'm real close. Luke Kennard remains on the close board for me. He only had 9 and 5 yesterday with 1 assist and 5 turnovers, so a really bad game, but 27 minutes is typically enough for him as long as Ja Morant is out. So I'm okay if you guys wanted to hang on there. If you don't, you don't. That's also fine. And then Jaxson Hayes I put on the board just to once again highlight how useful he is when Rui Hachimura is out. So as bullish as I am on Hachimura, I am equally bullish on Hayes in the games that Hachimura sits out, which is going to be a couple the rest of the way. Otherwise, the Lakers can go to that 5 out and play small, run Rui at the 5, and against a lot of teams, they can get away with it. Actually, this time, it probably wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But this is a game where, the Lakers made a couple of one extremely, extremely large boneheaded play late. And that was what cost him the ball game. Some watch list guys. I'm not totally done with you yet. And then there's a permission to drop player that I'll throw on your board as well. Watch list. Brandon Williams and Jaden Hardy for the Mavericks. Brandon Williams more so than Hardy. Hardy had 22 points, but he did it in 20 minutes. That's just not enough time for him long term, and the usage was nuts. Brandon Williams, 14 points, 2 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. The percentages were good, which I don't think is always going to be the case. But what if he starts to take from Dinwiddie? Let's keep an eye on that. Anthony Black has been on our watch list a couple of times now. He got 10 shots up for the Magic. I don't think that's quite enough for him, but he's a good steals and blocks guy from the guard position. I need to see more assists. This is a particularly bad offensive game for Orlando, which, again, calls into question how the hell they scored as much as they did against the Lakers. But 14, 3 and 3 with a couple blocks and a 3-ball is enough to kind of keep my attention, but not enough for me to make a move on it. Julian Champagnie. Yeah, we got all the Champagnies on today's show. Julian had 16 and 7 and 25 bench minutes for the Spurs. I'm going to need to see him maintain 25 or more minutes before I do anything with him on a fantasy roster. Colby Jones, not a name that I thought I was going to be talking about at any point this year, but here we are. Played 30 minutes for the Wizards yesterday with Chris Middleton going down and Anthony Gill going down. And who knows? We don't know much about Colby Jones's fantasy game anyway to say, this is a guy who's going to get you this, that, and the other thing, because he's averaging 9 minutes a game this year. But he's played 27, 28, and 30 in his last 3, and he has 3 blocks and 3 steals over that stretch. He has not done much else. So watch list, mostly to figure out what the hell this guy's going to be. Davion Mitchell is on the watch list. He graduated from solid streamer play to I'm considering you for a larger role at this company. He's just been he's played 30 minutes or more in 6 consecutive ball games, despite moving back to the bench. Assists over that stretch have gone 5, 4, 4, 7, 7, 6. He scored 12 points in over almost every single one of those ball games. He has 8 threes over those 6 games. He's actually taking to the rim more, and that's why the field goal percent has been better for him lately. If you look over the season, he's at about 47%, and the last 2 weeks, he's at 52, and it's a shot selection change. He's a good steals guy. We've known that since his Sacramento days. So if he's going to play 30-some-odd minutes, he's going to get you 1+ steals per game. And he's extremely low rostership. So you should be able to get him if you want him. You just kind of need steals, assists on decent field goal percent, which is like the TJ McConnell fantasy game, but a guy who's playing more reliably than TJ McConnell, who, by the way, had a big ball game yesterday, but who didn't. And then Caris LeVert, who I already mentioned in passing. Again, you're stat hunting there a little bit. I keep accidentally talking about Cleveland when I think of LeVert. He's not there. He's in Atlanta. 17-5 yesterday. He'll get you points and steals on bad percentages typically. So again, more of a specialist, but a specialist that definitely has a role on a lot of fantasy teams right now. And I give you all permission to drop Kai Jones, which sucks because he was on our ads board like twice earlier this week, and he was well on his way to another nice ball game before he hurt his back and only played 7 minutes. Finished with 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block on 2 for 2 shooting from the field. But you just can't hold on to injured guys right now, not with 2.5 weeks left in the NBA season. I think there's, 18 days left? 17 days left? What is today? Friday, Saturday, Sunday? 17 days left! That's stupid short. So if someone's going to miss 3, 4, 5 days, that's a third of the season, basically. Can't hold on to a guy who's going to miss a third of the season right now, not when you need games on the head-to-head side, or frankly, even in Roto, unless you're like running way out in front in games played, which, I mean, some of you might, but that would surprise me given how many games people have missed this year due to injury or rest or asking out or whatever BS is going on a day-to-day basis. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Dan Bespers for Old Man Squad. Please hit that subscribe button on the way out. That's the big one. We want to just collect a few more of you guys before this season ends. But don't worry, we've got shows all off season long, and we will have new contributors here at Old Man Squad. I cannot tell you what's going on yet, but I can tease it, and I promise you it's going to make your eyes go because it's super rad. At Dan Bespers on Twitter. Drop a follow over there if you're just finding me for the first time. Again, like, rate, subscribe on the way out. And my goal is to get you guys a streaming show a little bit later on today. A couple things came up on the personal side that might stop us from doing that. And if that's the case, make sure to follow on social media because we'll get it posted over there, which will be the same stuff just without an explanation. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I think I'll see you later. Bye-bye.